if I can have your attention. Hi, it's my pleasure to welcome you all. So this is now our sixth one of these seminars in the series. We tend to run these on a kind of quarterly basis, and some new faces this time, which is great to see also, and some familiar faces too. So very warm welcome to you all. My name is Paul Harper. If you don't know me, I'm Deputy Head of School of Mathematics and Director of the Health Modelling Centre, Cymru. And it's a great pleasure to welcome Christos Batsilasis, who's an Associate Professor at the University of Bath, School of Management. And also, it was our pleasure, just 2 weeks ago or so? It was 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago to go to the launch event of Christos' new Centre for Healthcare Innovation Improvement. I squared, all good centres have squared in the title, right? And so it's a real pleasure. We wish you all success in your venture. Just keep on that side of the river. Yeah. So it's a real pleasure. So Christos is going to talk to us about his experiences of the role of operational research in redesigning healthcare services. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure. It's a pleasure again to be here, and thank you all for coming. As Paul mentioned, we did have a launch event a couple of weeks ago, and I do have a few photos. So we went to a very nice place in downtown Bath, an art gallery, the Victoria Art Gallery. So you can see it's Georgian splendid, if you like. And we had banners, we had something to drink, we had something to eat. We had talks from important people. I'll say a few words as well. And we had a very big presence from artists, which was great to see. Okay, in the place. But we had quite a lot of you, and I have more photos to show you. So you might not want to see them. I didn't want to put them here in public. So yes, if I can say a few words about the center, it's my intention for the center is to be an academic center, and by that I mean the intention is to work in close collaboration with healthcare organizations, with commissioners of healthcare, with social care organizations, and try to help them improve the way they go about their business in redesigning services, pathways, funding, governance, whatever. We are quite a lot of people, not only operational research and modeling simulation, not the only expertise we have in the center. We have also qualitative research, and we have operations management experts. We have people who are experts in public audit. So we like to bring a multidisciplinary team and tackle each problem in a flexible way. So yeah, I'm looking forward to formalizing or extending links and kind of doing some work together. After all, we're not that far away from each other, and I'm sure we'll be doing that. Happy to answer any questions after the talk or during the break, if there is one, about the center. Now, about today's talk, that you said, I look forward to the talk. Well, in a way, I look forward to the talk as well, because I put together some of my ideas and some of my experience that I've accumulated over the past 16, 17 years that I've been doing this kind of work in the UK, also in Canada. So I'm going to go. I know that a lot of you have come here before and you know about operational research, you know about modeling simulation. I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about it again, perhaps give you a new insight or perspective what we mean by modeling simulation, what we mean by operational research, and also mention some of the challenges that we have as operational researchers, and see how best we can work to make an impact in healthcare and the way you go about doing your business. Because it's more of I would like more to have a discussion rather than me talking at you, although this old-fashioned arrangement kind of lends itself to traditional type of lecturing, you know, you listen, I talk, but it's not the way I would like this to advance, at least not now. And so please interrupt me if you have anything to say or if you want to discuss a particular point. And it's an opportune moment. You have probably seen Simon Stevens' 5 year forward view. And I searched, that's the first thing I did. I don't think I even read the whole thing, but I searched for key sort of like systems modeling, simulation. I couldn't find anything, and I put operation research, and there you go. There is operation research mentioned in that document, and actually I learned who inserted there. I can tell you later. But anyway, so page 34 says, working with the NIHR and Department of Health, we will expand NHS operation research and other methods to promote more rigorous ways of answering high-impact questions in health service redesign. I know that I'm not in England at the moment, I remember that, but NHS hospitals, at least on the other side of the bridge, there has been an increased realization of what operation research can bring to the fold. And probably I'm preaching to the converted, because with what the setup you have here, at least with ABCI and perhaps with other units, you've already done that, but hopefully we'll get an opportunity to expand on this. So a very quick overview of what I mean about operational research, because we want to make sure that we're all on the same the same side, it's on the same page, sorry. So my working definition is a use of mathematical and computer modeling techniques to help you making decisions about complex systems. There are so many different terms that you can use to describe either operational research or something very closely related to operational research. So other terms that we use is management science, business analytics, which is quite common now, especially in undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. Our students don't like operational research, or at least that's what people think. And I teach all sorts of business analytics. I'll try to convince them that what I tell you now is not really new. I've been teaching the same thing for the past 60 years, just the name has changed. Decision science, operations management, all these are things that are fairly similar. We have a portfolio of modeling techniques within operational research. Probably you've come across some of them. So we have what we call hard or computationally, mathematically based techniques like simulation, optimization, forecasting, inventory theory. We also have softer methods, things like problem structuring, softness methodology, that perhaps don't produce necessarily numerical results, but help you frame problems, help a group make decisions, and the like. Now, applying operational research to healthcare problems is definitely not new. And if you do a bit of literature review, because that's a track record that we have, you can see that in 1952, actually, it was taking place already. So there's Norman Bailey, who was a professor at the University of Cambridge at the Department of Human Ecology, none other, who was working with J.T. Welch, not far away from here, at the University of Bristol, and the hospital trust linked to the hospital, University of Bristol. And as you can see, not only they worked on it, but they also wrote 2 papers about it. One published in the Lancet, and one published in the Journal of the Royal Society, Statistical Society, Part B, but that's not very important. So it's not what we do now. It's not new. And the idea that operational research can be used to tackle problems in healthcare has been in existence ever since operational research basically was founded around the Second World War, when the Minister of Defense plucked scientists from universities and put them with military planning and military operational teams to help them make decisions around defense and other tactics that they were employed in World War II. Hence the term operational was for military operations. Now, since then, OR has taken off and is used extensively in industry. So we have many academic departments, we have societies, and we have big corporations having really large operational research groups, even if they don't really call them operational research groups, at least not anymore probably. So we have BA, which has a very large and well-defined group that deals with all sorts of things that a big airliner would need to help plan and manage the staff and fleets and revenues. Big logistics firms use extensively operational techniques to plan collection and delivery of parcels, and that's why it costs so little to send a package from this part of the world to halfway around the globe overnight. You can track it. I think operational research has a big role to play in the ability to do this so quickly and so cheap. We have the Suez Canal, and canals is something that Professor Griffiths has worked quite extensively and has done some really influential work in this area. And Amazon and these big internet firms use operational research quite a lot. Now the question is, what about hospitals? and healthcare organizations. So the truth is that, well, actually, recently, has also some healthcare organizations have been doing versions of how do you take advantage of versions of not industry now. So that's an article, opinion article, that was that appeared in the BMJ a dozen years ago, written by someone that we knew through Horace. Which was the first name of Malcolm? Anyway, it's not important. So he wrote that hospitals have largely failed to use one of the most potent methods currently available for improving the performance of complex organizations. That was his opinion at the time. Nobody really came out against this opinion. But there've been a bit more systematic work. So this is a systematic literature review that I participated in with colleagues from Vancouver in Canada, where we looked specifically in papers that were tackling surgical care. So we're modeling specifically patient flow in the perioperative part of patient care, so surgical care basically. And we did see that there is a kind of a very, upward trend, if you like, a very distinct growth in the number of papers that are reported in the literature that use OR to tackle surgical patient flow problems. However, when the qualitative work that we did on the same analysis, we found that only a handful of publications reported that models were constructed to address the needs of policymakers, and only 26%, so one in four, report some involvement of health system managers and policymakers in the simulation studies. In my mind, that's pretty poor, and that reflects badly on operational researchers rather than healthcare people. And I think this is something that tells us that we have to work better and harder in order to put across our ideas and our techniques and our tools. Why is this happening? Perhaps there's something we can discuss. Well, there are all sorts of reasons. And one can say that, well, it is happening, but it's not being reported in the literature, which may be true, and actually it is true. There are cases, but usually what you can find in published in the literature is probably a good reflection, perhaps the tip of the iceberg of what's happening also below. There's also realities of organizational decision-making process that are not always compatible with some sort of academics or other kind of scientists working side by side. There are also differences in the type of evidence used within the clinical community. So clinicians and other health service researchers, epidemiologists and the like, they have their RCTs or randomized controlled trials as gold standard, and anything else than that, it doesn't feel really like evidence. And what we produce is not really RCTs. It's basically we come in when RCTs are not, they don't make sense ethically or from a safety perspective or from financial perspective, so on and so forth. Also, there are costs involved, it doesn't come for free, and also there's human resource capacity considerations, so there are not that many people doing this kind of work, so sometimes they're difficult to find. This is something, the moving goalpost is something that I've come across quite often. We try to set up a project, if you set up a project, then the organization either disappears completely out off the map because the new government has decided to do a new organization, so you have to start all over again, or new guidelines are being issued, and the whole problem is suddenly you're faced with a different problem than the one you started tackling. So that's a big problem, as is how quickly and how timely we can produce our findings in order to be of use to the decision-making process. And of course, there's always a tension between academic and practical work. We are judged as academics on the basis of our grants and our papers and other measures like this. Healthcare people don't really care much about that, and rightly so. So there are many reasons why we haven't been doing it so far, obviously ABCI and other solutions and other kind of models of working and co-producing together is one way of dealing with it. Now, probably I'm going a bit too fast. Any questions so far? Is there anything you want to discuss about what I've said so far? Well, let's spend a bit of time around modern simulations, and this is perhaps now moving on to the more kind of technical part of the talk, where I will try to address at least one of the challenges, which is around timeliness and whether we should go down a complicated and complex kind of modeling solution or whether simple models work better from a practical perspective. So, I would think most of you here, and I'm not referring to the operational research among you, will know what a modeling simulation is, but just to make sure we are on the same page, what it is not that type of modeling. I get this quite a lot. When I say that I model the thing of this but also it's not that, because within healthcare, when we talk about simulation, this healthcare simulation, kind of practicing on dummies and practicing as a team in a kind of simulated environment is something that comes across often. So this is not what we do, although there's nothing. This is a valid way of doing certain things. So what we do is we build models, and a model can be a variety of things. A model can be a toy model like this, where the kid will have and play, or it could be a model of a skeleton, where you can use for teaching anatomy. It can be something like that, which I don't know if you've seen this, but a couple of months ago on Channel 4, they used this machine, which is basically a hydraulic machine with water to show how the economy works and how money moves from one part of the system to the other. That was actually, it's called MONIAC. There is a version of it called MONIAC, and it's actually in the Natural History Museum in London. And it was the product of a PhD thesis back in the 50s of the London School of Economics. But that's another model, that represents the economy. And that's another model as well. That's the humble straight line, but it's a very powerful model, and we use linear regression all the time. And these are the kind of models that we work with, perhaps a bit more complex than that, but that's quite powerful as well, even in its simplicity or because of its simplicity. Now, in terms of models, we have two basic categories, if you like, of models. We have analytical models, and by that I mean mathematical models. So we use, it doesn't matter what that is, but we, in a sense, we use mathematics to express the model. We use mathematics even to evaluate the model numerically. And we also have computer simulation. Computer simulation is essentially a piece of software. And there are differences between those two solutions. So you can go down that route where you can use maths, but then you have to make many more assumptions. On the other hand, it is repeatable. You can put it out there, people can see it and check it and tick it, and it's testable. It's something that in science we like, repeatable and testable. It's something that requires, it's one of the foundations of decent science, I think, the scientific method. On the other hand, with computer simulation, because it's a piece of software, you actually have a lot fewer restrictions. You can make fewer assumptions. You can put in all sorts of complexity that better represent your healthcare problem, your healthcare system, whatever it is. Can be very detailed if so desired. At the same time, it's more fiddly, and it's less testable. And it's not that easy to communicate from a scientific point of view. It's not that easy to put it out there and get other people to test it and kick it and make sure that it works and perhaps apply it in different problems in different settings. And if you want an analogy about the difference between analytical model and computer simulation, without my gender and my age, I'm using but an analytical model is really like a Suzuki thing. A lot of people in my men in my age so it doesn't really look like it. But actually totally well. I really spend an ordinary amount of time playing this game as a computer simulation looks a bit more like a new video game, where they're really immersive and really look like they're really true. At the same time, you enjoy the power and perhaps even showing the gameplay that's nice. But it's not. So we have this kind of two different types of models, an analytical model and a computer simulation. Now, what does a model really look like? And I think the best analogy that I've come up is something that I saw a former colleague of mine talking about. This is Steve Gallagher, from the University College down in London. It's really like a nucleus. That's what the model is. It's that machine here. This is what you're trying to come up. And what you have with this machine is that you put inputs and then you turn the handle and you produce some sort of output. That's really what the model is in its, if you break it down to the bare essentials. And how do we really do a modeling study? Is first we need to come up with the machine, the user, and then we fill it with input. And I think and of course, for the details, the input is not obviously mixed, there is a variety of input parameters. So this is a string of parameters, doesn't matter what it is. You put these values in, you turn the handle, and you get something like that. And then what you can do is, without changing the machine account, without changing the user, you can change one of the input parameters, and you take it from 30 to 40. And then turn the handle again, and you get some different result. You can do it again, you can reduce it from the initial value 30 down to 20, you turn the handle, and you get another output. This is how modeling works. This is what modeling. This is what we mean by modeling. But at this stage, it's also important to emphasize that modeling, as the term implies, is a process rather than just talking about the model itself. It's a process that starts from the real-world problem and using a variety of observations, interviews, discussions, shadowing of clinicians or managers. We come up with some sort of understanding of the problem. Sometimes we call this a conceptual model, so that can be a collection of maps and narrative descriptions and other ways of describing in plain English what the system looks like. And then from that, by magic, which I will go into a bit more detail later on, we somehow formulate, express, code, and validate a mathematical or computer model like the MIG-MISER that I'll show you later on. I will go into this process a bit into more detail later on. And once we have the MIG-MISER, once we have the model, then we can turn the handle a number of times. Sometimes we turn it many times, other times a few is enough. So that's the running or experimentation and the reporting that we do on the basis of the findings. And hopefully, the whole idea is to increase our understanding about the real-life problem, and that will lead to changes, innovations, evaluations, whatever, policy making, decisions around policy, so on and so forth. Perhaps this little video can show you what modeling is all about and how it can be used. If I can find it. Yeah. So this is all about modeling, simulating basically situations that don't really happen in reality. But moving on, any questions so far? Is there anything you want me to spend a bit more time talking about? Yes, please.
I'm not from this practice, how do you human behaviors irrationality?
That's a good question. Actually, it's one of the main areas of research effort at the moment in our field, that we take the moment, how do we take into account human factors. We have ways, especially by using random variables, or using what we call stochasticity, so instead of writing a single value, we're writing a range of values to account for different, perhaps not easy to predict precisely behavior. It's not perfect. And we're spending a lot of time looking at how to do better. And how to incorporate human behavior not only in the model itself, but throughout the lifetime of the community. So also around decision making, presenting results in a better way so that we can help really make better decisions in community. It's something that we're trying to tackle on that side. Not there. Yes, please. It's not
There's very much, so many factors, yeah. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. This is the challenge of a modeler. This is what good modeling is all about. So it's not easy or even achievable to take into account every single source of complexity within a social system. That probably will never be the case because social systems have very complex actually and unpredictable behavior. I think part of the modeling aim and objective is to subtract a lot of this complexity to make it more manageable to the human cognition to understand. And then there are ways of bringing in back this complexity and kind of making an argument about how this complexity then will have an impact on the results. Very integrated to account. So I'm not sure that, first of all, what I said, which is actually applies to the previous question, there is a concerted effort to look into ways of taking into account human behavior in a much better and more scientific sound way. At the same time, I don't think that our aim is to be able to build models that will include every single sort of complexity that we have developed, because then we don't end up with models that are difficult to understand how they realize it. So part of the modeling experience is to boil it down to some manageable entities and relationships in entities, so then we can start understanding how to work. So, instead of speaking in abstract and without using really a concrete example, I decided to bring in a concrete example from a recent study that we conducted. I started working on when I was still at UCL until a year and a half ago, and kept on working through the last few months. So there's all sorts of different people to acknowledge. It's quite a big piece of work, and it's definitely not just me that worked on it. And we got some funding to do this work with Multi-Design Hospital in London, the Salmonology Specialist Center that most of this program is. So the problem that we were asked to tackle and we started working on is around glaucoma. For those of you that do not know glaucoma is one of the most common causes of irreversible blindness worldwide, and affects about 10% of the population over 75 and 2% over 40. So the more the population ages, the more the incidence and the prevalence grows. This is what normal vision will be like, and this is how it will start. This is how vision gets hindered by glaucoma, and how people can actually lose sight if glaucoma remains untreated. Accounts for 1 million outpatient visits to England's NHS annually, so we're talking about big numbers here. Ophthalmology in general is the second specialty in terms of outpatient visits and activity. Orthopedics being the first one. I think ophthalmology in England accounts for about 6 million outpatient appointments every year. And not only we have the aging population, so higher incidence of glaucoma, but also NICE issued some guidelines in 2009 that lowered the threshold of referral to specialist hospitals, so people with suspected glaucoma. So we have an even higher increase in referrals because of this change. I don't know what the experience is in this part of the country, but in a typical NHS trust in England, the glaucoma clinics overrun by many hours, trying to cope with demand, and the new referrals increased by about 7% per year. And it has been increasing like that for the past few years. So you can understand it's a big problem.
and it's not easy to tackle, and a lot of resources, and also the downside is quite severe if people lose the site because we don't provide adequate care. Any ophthalmologists or people working in this area here? So you can corroborate and confirm that this is a big problem. So what this study was all about, it wasn't just about operational research, it was a multidisciplinary study. And the aim was to design an evaluation framework for assessing acceptability, implementation, cost effectiveness of innovation in the diagnostic process of chronic eye diseases. And in particular, we looked into 2 case studies of improvement that were taking place at the hospital, the collaborative hospital, outside the efforts of the research team. So we were not leading those, we were not responsible for those. We were studying those and using those in order to understand better what's happening. So the first one was around redesigning staff roles and patient flow within existing clinics. And that was led by an external management consultancy that the hospital had hired. And that was with the aim of addressing the clinic overruns, because the typical clinic supposed to start at 1:30 and finish at 5. I've been there on a Friday night until 8:30 at night, and they were still seeing patients. So that's not good for either patient, no staff, no researchers like that. But and the other study was that was led by Murtuza Hospital itself. Was to develop a new streamlined, or what they call remote view clinic for treating stable glaucoma patients. In a sense, take the consultant out of the equation and then have technicians taking the required scans and photographs of the optical nerve and visual fluid tests and whatever else needs to be taken, and then a consultant remotely assessing the evidence and making some judgment about the state of the patient. So these are the 2 projects that we looked on. As I said, we worked in a disciplinary setting. We think this is very important moving forward for operational research. I think we cannot see operational research as a single discipline that can tackle big problems single-handedly. So we worked with just economists that looked into cost and outcomes. We worked with implementation researchers, basically prototype researchers and economic researchers were looking for organizational issues and environment and facilitation of change within an NHS organization. And also us were looking into the demand and resource use of the market of the present market operation research in the company. And the whole idea was to bring all this together and come up with an evaluation framework that can be used for a specific purpose, which was to understand the potential and reality of addressing anticipated glaucoma demand through new services. And something that this work is still ongoing, at least the next stage is ongoing, but the idea is that this framework can be used by different departments to evaluate the suggested solutions that they have in order to cope with the increasing demand. We did quite a lot of field work, so we spent hours of observing outpatient clinics. We conducted all sorts of semi-structured reviews. And we also did some secondary data analysis, so we extracted data from the hospital information system, and we looked at 4 years worth of outpatient appointment data. And we managed to also, because we had unique identifiers, we managed to stitch together consecutive patient data so that you will see this is quite important in glaucoma care. At some point, the question, and I'm trying to bring it now to the mind of a modeler, the question is, should we model the clinic? Should we go in, look at the clinic, look at the different ways that patients move inside the clinic, how they move from reception to nurse that takes the visual acuity test to perhaps some other patients, consultants, because there were clinic overruns, that's for sure. We thought about it, and we did process mapping, and we came up with process maps. And then we should have, had we decided to go down that path, we would have done some more process maps, more detailed process maps, amenable to be coded into a simulation engine. And we would have produced a simulation engine, and then we would have run all sorts of simulation experiments. However, we felt that with such high increases in referrals per year, we're talking about 7% annual increases, with really such big challenge, we felt I would be akin to rearranging the church on Titanic's deck as it was about to sink. So what we did is we took a step back and we started looking at the data. So this is now real data that we managed to extract from the information system managed. Well, we extracted it, was that. So that's 4 years worth of routine data. That's for a single weekly clinic run by the same consultant over 4 years. It's not surprising, and I've seen this in many different specialties. I've seen it in many different types of hospital-based care. What we see here is that from all the unique patients that were seen over this 4-year period, the vast majority of them only had one visit. So were seen only once for a variety of reasons. They were seen only once, and this particular consultant didn't need to see them again because they had no glaucoma, or it could be that they died, or it could be that they moved to a different part of the country, all sorts of things. So we're not saying exactly, we don't know exactly what's happening here, but the majority of patients were seen only once over 4 years, and then decreasing number of patients were seen 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And there was a patient that had 48 appointments within 1 year. And actually, we looked at that specifically, we asked staff, and actually it wasn't an error. There was a patient that had come in 48 times in the clinic over 4 years period. Now, if someone says this, perhaps is led to believe that the problem, or at least most of the gains, is to be found here, because this is where most of the patients are. But if you were to turn it around and present it in a different way, then a different picture emerges. So what we have here is the number of, the percentage of slots occupied or allocated, if you like, to patients according to the number of appointments in the clinic. So what that tells us is that 20% of the available slots over this 4-year period has been allocated and been taken up by patients that were seen 4 or fewer times in the clinic. And a staggering 80% of slots were taken by patients that had at least 5 or more appointments. So obviously, dealing with the less frequent flyers, it's not the base issue, it's dealing with the patients that come in over and over again. And I'm not saying they should be coming in. There are clinical reasons why these patients are coming back, but this is where we should be focusing on, really, if we want to make a difference. So that kept us thinking, and we started looking at the caseload. And this is what we started realizing with the help of the clinicians. First of all, every week they see new referrals. A clinic will probably, in most of the hospitals, probably have about 10 new referrals per week. I'm talking about a single clinic that runs half a day, not I'm talking about the entire. They have hundreds of new referrals every week. Now, a proportion of them will be discharged because the glaucoma was not suspected. They didn't have glaucoma, they didn't need to be there. They will have the test, and then the consultant will tell them they can go home and come back in. But some of them might have a problem, and in principle, they may be asked to come back after 1 week, or they may be asked to come back after 1 month. They may be asked to come back after 3 months, or 6, or 9, or 12 months. Glaucoma is a progressive disease, and any damage that has taken place on the optical nerve cannot be reversed. So it's important that you basically get in early and do something about it before the damage to the optical nerve gets worse, because you can never reverse it. So that's with new referrals. But then, if we look at the workload of a clinic that runs today, there will be patients that were in the clinic last week. And these are usually the patients that had some intervention. These are patients that usually had this operation, because you can treat glaucoma with medication, you can treat glaucoma with laser treatment, you can treat glaucoma with operation. A lot of patients do get operation at some point, operation. And these patients need to be seen on a weekly basis for 5 or 6 weeks in order to make sure that healing is done okay, and the desired outcome has been achieved with the operation. So assuming that the clinic runs today, then you have patients that come today that came last week, and some of them will be discharged, very few of them. Some of them will have to come back after 1 week, some of them will have to come back after 1 month, so on and so forth. And you can keep on doing this. And today you will have patients that were last seen a month ago, and some of them will come back one after 1 week and so on and so forth. So that's one way of abstracting and looking at the workload. Now I'm going to open a parenthesis here, and we're going to spend a bit of time looking into the modeling strange minor, or how modeling can be seen as a natural and as science. It's something that I think when it comes to modeling. So the question is, how do we go modeling this thing? How do we produce a model out of what I just described to you? And Paul perhaps can confirm or we use analogies many times in operational research, and we're trained to use analogies. So if you're trained in operational research, one of the first things that you learn is the knapsack problem. So the knapsack problem means that you have a number of items to take, each of a certain size and value. You have a particular size of the sack, so you don't have unlimited capacity, and you need to choose the items to maximize value to exceed without exceeding capacity. So this analogy has created many careers in operational research and has thrown a lot of mathematical applications out of it. And it has a lot of application in healthcare as well. So you can use this analogy to produce models that can be used to address issues in funding, for example, alternative healthcare facilities, public health initiatives, research programs, etc. Another analogy, perhaps a bit more esoteric and not one that is typically taught in operational research degrees, is that of taxi hailing. So imagine a situation where taxis arrive randomly and leave if no one's waiting, and passengers wait for a taxi, but may give up after a period of time if no taxi arrives. Can you think what kind of application in healthcare this will apply to? Sorry? A&E. That's not the one I have in mind. It could be. It's another one I have in mind. Right? Yeah, people down for the so it's organ transplantation. So people waiting on a waiting list are like to receive an organ, are like passengers waiting for a taxi. And if the taxi arrives, basically an organ arrives, you may die, especially if it is one of the vital organs. And the taxis are the donors actually, providing donations. And if the donation, if a donor organ becomes available, it's not going to stay available for a long time. You have to do it within a number of few hours, depending on the organ then it's gone. So we have used analogy to come up with some of these solutions to the management of patients looking for heart treatment, particularly pediatric heart patients in this particular case. So that was a parenthesis. Now going back to our problem. So we were faced with this. We have done this analysis on this abstraction, and have to think how to proceed from this to producing a mathematical or other model. And the one we thought, and that's something that we do get trained into persons as well, is the stocking of perishable goods. Now, perhaps doesn't lend itself so nicely to explaining in a lecture theatre, but mass from inventory theory can actually model this fantastically well. And that looks really tough nut to crack, but I can tell you this is a very simple equation. It's just addition, basically. It's not, you can implement this very easily in a spreadsheet. It looks onerous, but it's definitely not. So from this, through some sort of creative thinking, if you like, we end up with that. And from that, we can end up with this. So what is that? Is if we can actually put in a matrix and can be able to tell for the patients that were seen last week, how many of them I will have to see next week. And the patients that I saw last month, how many I will have to see next week, next month, 3 months time, and so on and so forth. Then I have a very good input values for my model. And with a bit of IT, that can be easily calculated. And this is actually real data from the collaborative hospital. So what you can see here, some nice patterns emerge. So for the patients that were seen last week, a big proportion of them will come back next week, because these are 70 patients.
But there's long appointment. Most of the time, it's just checked by the consultant, the person for surgical operation, to see the rest as well. And then this one becomes increasingly, the frequency kind of reduces. So 40% of these patients will come back after a month, and very, very few numbers, very small proportions will come after 3 months of the discharge. That you're not discharged if you just had an operation. And you can see what happens with patients that were last in 1 month. So most of them, about half of them, will come back after 1 month. Some of them will go on a slower burner. Some of them will be escalated basically because things aren't working, the medication perhaps not working. And you can see a lot of interesting practice imaging on that, like that. So this is quite informative in its own right for the people who run the service, because I can tell you that's not something that they really have in mind when they run the service. This is something that provides an insight to them. In terms of new referrals, you can see that a lot of new referrals are discharged. About 1 in 3 new referrals are discharged. They don't need to be there. But a good proportion, 20%, will have to come back in 3 months. So they do have a problem. They need to be seen. In general, you can see that the discharge rate is quite low. Only here you will have 1 in 3 about being discharged. Here, less than 10% being discharged from the patient that are on 12-month follow-up, and very, very, very few patients from 9-month follow-up and short. And that's, from operational research perspective, is very key. And that's something that always is apparent to people who run the service or organize the service. So we managed to basically create our meat-mincer machine, and now we can start turning the handle. And this is what we've turned the handle to be, so that's something we've already published. So assuming that we have a stable stream of 10 new referrals for a single clinic, which is very realistic, assuming that the case mix is the one that you saw just before in terms of follow-up intervals, assuming that 30% of the referrals are discharged and 80% of those on 12-month interval are discharged, which is what we saw earlier on, this is what's going to happen. What they do now to address the problem is they hire new consultants. You know how many consultants they have there for glaucoma only? So they hire new consultants, they open a new clinic. What that tells you is that within within weeks or very, very, very few years, you're going to run full of capacity. It's not sustainable. So the capacity of the clinic is at best somewhere here, and you reach that point very, very quickly. Without variations, without increases in referrals, just keep things as they are now. Keep business as usual is not very sustainable unless you can train as many ophthalmologists and compare as many ophthalmologists and so on and so forth. And it's not just one ophthalmologist needed for a clinic, there's about 10 people working in this clinic. As always, there is a warning, there are assumptions. And then we can start looking at things. So what if, instead of hiring new consultants to see more patients, why don't we hire a consultant and have chemotherapy discharging patients? We don't need to do that. So we can tell what's going to happen if you were to increase the discharge rate of stable patients, for example. So you can start making dents on your kind of long-term demand for weekly appointments, not necessarily very big dents. Not necessarily very big dents, but you start making an impact. The other thing that I told you that we studied in was one of the 2 case studies is they were thinking of sending patients from the main clinic to some sort of remote review clinic. So using the same methodology, using the same framework, we can test this out as well and see the likely impact of that. So the whole idea is to take this framework and just introduce a new stage here, if you like. And with a number of assumptions, because some patients will have to come back again every 9 months or 12 months or whatever, and some patients will have to go back to the main clinic because the condition will deteriorate. We can make predictions of what will happen, and actually we can start bounding the problem and the solutions for the collaborating trust. So we can tell them, for example, if they don't achieve or if they don't work towards this number of patients going to the remote review clinic, or if too many patients come back to the main clinic because the tests are not taken correctly, they're going to face the same problems again. So they can start bounding the solutions, how
how good the new system has to be in order to start making a difference to the demand and the capacity. I think uh, I think that's we can leave it here. The only thing I can add is that it's not all doom and gloom. There are many people and groups that work now on this, and we recently, with the lead of Martin Peake, who some of you may know from Mexico, and the Clark down there, there is now in this, as I said, a lot more about systems modeling simulation healthcare, and there is a map of many centers that do the work, and of course, not least, the two great centers that we have here. So I hope that gave you some sort of idea about operational research and application in healthcare, and I'm more than happy to take any questions. That's what we try to take into account.
As you run that over time, you look at different timing zones, and clearly you get different resonant frequencies, and basically getting the two, so that you get minor variations in those communications, so next week, on the medication, community, follow-up, and frequency, as you get resonant so what you get, pretty clearly how to get it. With this, you actually get this customer, you get customers of activity, which suddenly spirit, and then you get, so we call it like class. Listen, how do you consider that the speed timing tools and the resonance?
There are one of the things that you can take into account. And usually what you know from here is that the more random you have, the worse it is in terms of capacity planning and the problems you have in the system. So imagine what this model shows you, taking this complexity out, you still really, the system still doesn't cope on this very demand. And this is without taking into account so in a way, that's the lower bound. That's the best case scenario in the world. It's still the best case scenario. It's not really enough.
Okay, that's what I'm looking at. At what point does it stop giving services to individual needs? Because if you take a lot of what you're saying is there is the system, you must put the system rather than anything like that.
Yeah, good question. Well, it is a system by definition, and one has to look at it as a system. Now, of course, as part of that, we have to include individual factors. I have to be, as a modeler, I'm not too concerned about it at some level. As a user, as a carer, as a patient, I'm seriously concerned about it. And that's one, having experienced the cultural system in different world, that my biggest issue with NHS is you deal with a system rather than an individual. So it's something that perhaps we can take into account when we start making decisions about what we model and not model. So in individual patient choice, there has been some of the work that I've done in my department of service, so that we want to really take seriously into account patient choice and we really simplify in order to be able to offer that choice to the majority of the patients. We do not have experience for that. However, we did talk to PCR. So one of the things was care of the patient. And
when it comes to
the people using the system, that's what I'm talking
absolutely, and what became apparent from talking to that in the and you know, I think a very, sample of it, is that people basically try to be that person because they're very proud to recognize, especially the first country. And they're prepared to travel long distances because they feel safe and they feel like they're the best care in the world. So this part is taken because there's nothing wrong with impunity or the consider more serious challenge for them, and that's why it's not simply all the people who are there. You really have to take into account how we can continue to take how to communicate with them. That really I think that at least a good care somewhere else is closer to their home.
sorry, my next one. Yes, yeah, I am. Christian, I just reflecting on what you just said about, is it your intention that research is always best when it's mapped to the individual to work out things? Because I think in the managerial where we optimize trying to understand at a very macro level, how the system so we obsess about hospital quality. And actually, the history and how we're not just obsessing about hospital quality, we're starting to say, okay, well, how does big question of primary care play in the sort of demand management role? And that's a big question that we are maybe beginning to grapple with that. We're also thinking about at tertiary level, what societal specialism we need. And we're thinking, well, Scotland and how does that construct work? So there's room, I think, and there's utility around big systems and understanding the system that most matters. But my personal contention would be you also need to that as well. But the challenge is how do you create a framework where you can get actual work done at the same time in such a way that you get results that satisfy midnight managers like me, but also tell us something that's valuable beyond a single political cycle. Sorry, that's a very long reflection. But have you got any responses on that?
Well, it's definitely important. From a systems perspective and from money perspective, what we can do at the moment is we can help you think in terms of what can be very personalization and patient concentration, providing a more personalized or patient centered or whatever you want to call service. And of course, there are other experts that can help you design a more personalized service. So there are design experts, or process design experts, or even architectural design experts that can help you design the system in a better way. As I said, as I answered earlier on, facing this solution and this kind of aims have the indication of many kinds of resources that require local dissertation time, so we have 18 dissertation time in international certification, that might be certification. From a modeling perspective, and I see myself as a modeling expert rather than an expert expert. The modeling is that's something that we can help take into account because of the certification of the terms of how many cases you can do, how many staff you need in order to do so that service. And so anyway, my solution is that nobody can help this, but it's very also guaranteed the parameters may come up with the guarantee.
That's a good last question.
I personally cannot think off the top of my head having done so, but I know also where also for not to work with use system changes, use changes in the way people operate, so we use the process of solution to help us embed the technology and use it into the working environment. So obviously, technology assessment that is done by law using either control trials or modeling has been done, and it's something that can be the topic of the modeling.
Okay, before we move on, just something I'll pick up was an interesting question about behaviours aspects. And I think what to testify what Christoph said really, in terms of part of the modelling process is to abstract and simplify, but also behaviours is important, certainly on our research agenda. And there have been various ways. The methods are available to help do that. If behavioural is an important factor in thinking into this, both from patient behaviour as well as staff behaviour. There's so many gaming goes on, all that kind of thing, and game theory, other techniques, and we use some of those locally. Another method also that we've worked on in the past is working with psychologists and actually taking models which they have worked, like period plan behaviour, and bringing them into our kind of OR talking as well. Be quite useful for looking at, for example, screening rates for mammography and why someone is decided not to attend screening and so on. So there's certainly a research agenda. Agent-based models and simulation, agent-based models, capturing that kind of evolving behaviour and dynamics. So, I mean, we have been trying to work together on this, haven't we, in funding. And I suppose the call here, has anybody had a particular juicy problem or where behaviour is an important factor, which will make for a nice grant proposal as a kind of joint effort? We would be very happy to hear from you, because certainly we'll be trying to get research funding for a particular person or problem in the health service. So anyway, I think for the time, we'll be hanging around to answer some questions. Yeah. So really thank Christos again. I apologise. The time of my life, I'm not flashes. It's really hot. Sorry, we're actually in the same building as the Vice Chancellor, so I can tell where the Peak Bill goes to Cardiff University on this building. I don't think when we Julie, I'm not sure if it's Right, so sorry, without further ado, our second speaker is delighted to welcome Sahal Davari, who's just joined the team via Istanbul, where you were working before, researcher. So Sahal is one of the team that's been created with funding from Anand Bevan, so part of the APCI modelling group. And there's been a great relationship for the last 2 years now, I think, going with a team of we're now 5 postdoctoral research associates funded by the Health Board and embedded in the Health Board. That's been really quite a success story in a sense of how to work in partnership with the NHS. It's not just about the mathematicians being in the university in dark and rooms, it's about spending their time actually embedded in the Health Board, which has been a real feature of why it's been working so well, thanks also to Anand Bevan, for the funding, etc. So you're going to talk about some of your previous work in Istanbul. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. First of all, thanks to Christos for introducing, having a very good introduction about our patient research. Mine is a little bit different. Julie asked me to limit myself to 20 minutes, so hopefully we will have 10 minutes of question and answer. Excuse me if I skip some slides or talk a little bit fast. I have 3 slides, a case study of 2 years, and I have to wrap it up in 20 minutes. I'm sorry. This presentation is about how operations research can help us in redesigning a preventive healthcare network. And it stems actually from a real-world case study in Istanbul, Turkey, where I spent 2 years. First of all, I will just quickly give you a little bit introduction about preventive healthcare and a couple of statistics. Then I'll introduce the case study about breast cancer screening centers in Istanbul. And finally, a kind of additional project, which is incomplete because I left Istanbul about a new job here, but I'm going to introduce you a little bit about the project. When you start talking about preventive healthcare, you should know that 3 out of 4 chronic diseases in a society are largely preventable. In the next slide, the next few slides, you will see a couple of them. In only UK, based on the statistics from Cancer Research UK, there are more than 50,000 new breast cancer cases detected annually. And while based on a research by Big Pan in 2008, early detection can reduce mortality by 25%, which is a huge number. Spending money on preventive healthcare is really beneficial for all the three main players of a healthcare system. I mean, the patient, the government, and the insurance company. So if you spend money on healthcare, the benefits will be much more in the future. So it often leads to less complex and less expensive care later, based on what Kaplan and Porter said. And another study by Maciasek in US shows that increasing the use of preventive health in the US can bring about cost savings of up to $3.7 billion, which is a huge amount of money. But okay, we know that preventive health is good, we should do something, we should just take some initiatives. But the problem is there is a difference which is inherent, the difference in preventive healthcare than the problems with active care. Because in preventive healthcare, people are really flexible in where and when to refer to hospital. I mean, if you have a stroke, if you pass out, or if there's something strange happening to you, you rush to the hospital. But most of us are a little bit negligent. So, like, let me exemplify my own mother. For years, for 3 or 4 years, I just, asked him, please go to your doctor for your breast cancer screening. But she says, no, I'm not in the mood of going to the doctor. So for preventive healthcare is different. You should try to motivate people to go to hospital. A way to motivate people is to locate facilities close to where they live. Okay? So if you have a center, a mammography screening center in Cardiff, it's more likely a guy from Swansea go to Cardiff to have a screening, rather, or compared to a case, you ask him to go to Newcastle. Okay, it's typically see. But if you have a facility like, which is like 2 minutes of walking from your home, it's more probable you go to that facility compared to a place like 80 miles away from you. Okay, so it's the thing which makes it complicated, locating a facility in preventive health. A couple of statistics, only in UK, based on the World Cancer Research Funding statistics, by investing in preventive health care, you can save up to 90,000 lives annually. About 230,000 new cancers of different kinds of cancer are here. You can save 90,000 people. And I don't know whether to call it good news or bad news. 3 out of the top 4 cancers are preventable. Bowel screenings, breast cancer screening with mammography, and also prostate cancer. So 3 out of the top 4 are preventable. So we have tests for prevention. Okay. So let's start talking about our case study in Turkey. It's just a slide about UK to say that it's applicable in UK. In Turkey, there are 95,000 new cases of cancer annually detected only in Turkey. And the number of men who are afflicted with cancer are almost 80% more than women, 275 and 165 in men and women respectively. Lung and prostate cancer are prevalent in men, and it's not surprising because if you've ever been to Turkey, almost everybody is smoking, so you can expect a large number of people with lung cancer and breast cancer in women. And there are projections that by 2030 there will be 1.3 million people with cancer in Turkey, and they will incur a huge cost to the government. So the government wants to locate new facilities to redesign the network of preventive healthcare in order to just improve the healthcare status of the country. This is a map of Turkey. Before talking about this map, let me tell you something. We are talking about facility location, which is a kind of strategic problem. You make decisions for locating facilities, and you can't change them for the next 20 years, 30 years. So it's not you locate a facility here, you change its location next year. So it's a really strategic problem. So you should have projections, estimations of future demand. If you make a decision right now and you don't want to change it for the next 30 years, Your decision should remain optimal for the next 30 years. This map shows the immigration, the rate of population change in Turkey. There are 81 states in Turkey. The light blue ones are experiencing positive population change, so the population is increasing. The orange ones are experiencing negative population change. Okay, so the trend is of immigrating from east to west. Okay, so this is a criteria, this is a factor you should have in your mind when you're trying to locate facilities. Okay, is it clear? Something else is statistics by TWIC. It stands for Turkish Institute of Statistics or something, which shows the level of satisfaction from health delivery healthcare systems in Turkey. And you see in Istanbul, which is the largest city, the Ankara, which is the capital city, and Antalya, which is a top destination for summer vacation, the satisfaction is not that high. And also in these places, this is Iran, this is Iraq, and this is Syria. So in the borders where these two countries, the level of satisfaction is great. So the government should try to improve the access to healthcare services here. And this is another factor to be considered and they asked us to do that. So the government started a kind of service, they call it KETEM. KETEM stands for Cancer Screening and Early Detection in Turkish. I don't know, I can't spell it. Anyhow, so you go around the country and you see these advertisements on the board. So they are trying to influence people that come and get screened. But okay, you ask people to come and get screened, but the problem is if the closest facility is 100 miles away, they don't go, okay? So they're trying to find the optimal locations of facilities. So people want to get screened and they have access in 1 mile away from them, so they go, okay? So our problem was there to locate our facilities. Just a schematic view of the problem. If these red circles are demand centers, city, and the black squares are our facilities. Let me exemplify. So this is Swansea, this is Cardiff, this is Bristol, and this is Boston. So you locate a facility in Cardiff, and because people actually tend to go to the closest center, people from Swansea don't go to Glasgow, they go to Cardiff. So you're assigning demand to the closest center. So this is just an overview, a schematic view of what happened actually in our problem. We were trying to find the locations, we were trying to find where to locate facilities. I mean, the location of those black squares. That was the problem. Is it clear? We had a discussion with Paul like an hour ago about uninterrupted and interrupted phase. So you may actually locate a facility in Cardiff and don't close it until the end of your planning horizon. So this is the case of uninterrupted phase. Once you open a facility, you don't shut it down. But you may have interrupted phase. You start a facility here. For the first 6 periods of time, 5 periods, you don't have a facility, so the hospital is shut down, it's not functioning. For the next 6 months, you may have some service in the hospital, they shut it down again, and so this is the interrupted. In our problem in Turkey, it was uninterrupted, so the government doesn't want us to shut down the facility. They ask us to give them the optimal locations and don't touch them until the end of the planning horizon. So we developed a mathematical model. I don't want to elaborate, I don't want to go into it, just it's a mathematical model, the mixed integer programming model with budget constraints and also the nearest neighbor allocation constraint and the regret model, which is the stochasticity is here. And also the equity is here if you're interested in knowing what is equity in this problem. Yes, I will tell you in the last 10 minutes. And this is the output. We made decisions for the next 9 years for Turkey. So if you can see, I think you can see, those states which are in green are potential facility locations, but there's no facility. And the red ones are places, states with a facility there. So for instance, in 2019, we are proposing the government to establish a facility in Istanbul, one in Samsun, one in Bra, one in Antalya. So and then don't touch them. So you see these red ones are still here. So gradually we are increasing the number of red states. This is the plan we give to guys. Is it clear? Another slide about the number of servers. Okay, we asked the government to establish a facility in Diyarbakir, which is a state to the southeast of Turkey. So we asked them in 2015 add 2 hospitals or 2 servers, in 2016 add 3, in 2017 add 1, blah blah. In Erzurum, don't locate anything. For 2016 and 27, each of them locate 1 facility, and don't add any until the end of planning horizon. So this shows the number of facilities, the number of servers we have in each of these 51 states. But the next problem is, in many parts of Turkey, especially in those eastern states, there are some states which experience big temperatures of minus 40 degrees. And there can be snow for up to 150 days. I mean, the snow remains for 150 days in the country. So it's a little bit, it's not at all sensible to ask elders to travel 120 miles to get access to a mammography screening center. So the government wants to know, can we use some mobile clinics? So instead of asking people to come to mammography screening centers, clinics, hospitals, or anything, we have some big vans. Inside there are some mammography screening machines. So we go around. So this is our previous problem in the previous slides I presented to you. So we establish a facility and ask people to refer there and get screened. But the mobile clinic cases, these black arrows are our clinics, I mean those big vans. So they go around, they come here and stay for 2 days. So people here refer here, instead of traveling like 80 miles, they travel like 5 miles and get screened. Then after 2 days on mobile clinic departs and goes to another city, stays there for 5 days, screen these people, then leaves to another city, and have to do around the country. So it has many applications. In immunization programs in Turkey, there are mobile clinics for immunization, mammography, HIV and STI tests, which are currently being done in Canada and Vancouver. I was in Vancouver in March, they're doing the same thing. Eye clinics, they are doing this in Yorkshire right now, in UK. Drug distribution such as parts, I know in Africa, I don't know in which countries, I'm talking about WHO they're doing. And screen clinics, I don't know if I spell it right or wrong, Shropshire in there, they're doing this. So mobile clinics are doing around the world, are done around the world, but Turkish government was interested in knowing if they can do it to Turkey or not. But anyhow, this problem has applications. Again, our mathematical model, I don't want to talk about it. And this is, again, a schematical output. Let me tell you, this is just an example, a sample. We have 2 vehicles, 2 big vans. So the optimal solution can be like this. Just start traveling from Cardiff, go to Bath, stay there for 10 periods, then go to Exeter, stay there for 2 days, then go to, Bristol, stay for half a day, blah, blah, blah. This is for the 3rd week. So for the 1st week, we have another route to be taken. For the 2nd, another thing. And this is the overview of our problem. So we have a decision support system to push a button, and we have the optimal route for our vehicles for the next couple of weeks. This is how to do it. And the last slide is about some sample case studies. These are not my projects, but if you're interested in knowing how operations research can help us in modeling and solving healthcare problems. There is a real-world case study by Vedat, my friend, in Montreal. That's the paper. If you're interested in any of these papers, just drop me an email. Humanitarian Relief in Indonesia by Wasino, the Dutch guy. Partitioning the healthcare system in Brazil. So you see all over the world, there are people who are doing case studies about how to apply operations research to healthcare. And finally, mobile healthcare by Doris' friend, Carl Doerner. That's all. If you have any question, I would be more than happy to answer. And I'm sorry again for skipping slides and talking so fast. Is it 20 minutes or 3 minutes maybe? I want to, okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's not completely different. Location. Do we have questions?
I think that was pretty fast, so.
I really want to two different scenarios whereby you have a mobile screening facility. What about the actual capacity of the individual nodes that conducting the services? Where do you take into account? You make an assumption about the capacity of that particular node and how you think it.
Okay, I told you, the second project is in conflict with Istanbul, and the first one, the assumption was that we found something, that we some experience in remote. So a server can serve like, for instance, 6 people, okay, 10 people. Okay? And there are some a little bit complicated stream nodes that is embedded inside the node. And again, that's very good to handle this scenario now. It's there, but I think it's elaborate my model because one of the constants, and beyond this is there is an engineer which is exploring some code kind of expressions that is being included in the anything else?
Again, I think just to say that we're looking for obviously application and building on this work. So again, if anybody has any or real world problems again, which kind of location type problems or mobile, static and mobile cases are pertinent, then again, please do drop us a line or by Julie or myself directly. It'd be great. So once again, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just to wrap up, just a few minutes before you rush. Jenny, you thought we could have this. Jenny Morgan, anybody who came to was it the last one? What's the last
Yeah.
Last one? Last one, yeah, so it's twice. There was a session, it was a fantastic session we had, like a breakout session, like a big difference. We do try to mix it up in time. Sometimes we have seminars like this, sometimes we have breakout groups and stuff, and we thought it was just nice to kind of feedback from what happened in the last session.
Thank you, Paul. I'm Jenny. Hopefully a few of you met me last time. I just wanted to very quickly, I won't take much of your time, to show you a bit of what we actually did with the wonderful maps that you were all doing last time. So at the session in October, John Frankish and Matt Wyatt introduced the idea of complexity and healthcare, and they introduced this diagram. And essentially they were talking about how we can think in terms of problems in healthcare, in terms of how structured they are and how predictable they are. So they gave us this diagram to work from, and I prefer these terminologies. But they posed us at the end of their session the question of what methods fit where and what issues in healthcare fit within this particular framework. So with only that very little bit of information that we gave to you, we then sent you all off into separate rooms, asked you to go in with a set of post-it notes, which I had to promptly change the colour of the slides because we couldn't get blue. So we asked you then to think about what methods fit onto this framework, what issues in healthcare and what goals are you actually trying to achieve with those methods, and what goals are those issues actually going to be addressing. So some started with methods, some started with issues, and some took more of an approach whereby they thought in terms of a quadrant on that chart, and thought maybe around how a goal, an issue and a method could actually be aligned. So what we were then also trying to do was get you all up and standing, posting post-it notes on there, having a discussion around it. And as you can see, some people are standing, some people are sitting. So just a little taster here of what actually went on in the other groups. I know you all had quite an isolated view in your own groups. So what did we actually get? So I've done a summary slide of each of the outputs that you all generated, and then I've summed it up at the end as well. So you can see on this example quite a lot of focus in the bottom right, so that's structured and predictable, but we're missing anything in the very unpredictable, that mess that we referred to ourselves on the earlier slides. This particular example, you can see we've actually only got one goal, and it's difficult to read, but it refers to high quality data. But we've got lots of issues and a few methods featuring in there. For some of the other ones, we've maybe got a few more goals being addressed, being raised by people. Some already, you'll probably spot this, some common methods coming through. We can see sort of DES coming through, system dynamics, agent-based modelling. So a few of these things have been mentioned this evening. Game theory sat in the middle there, which is trying to go into the really complex issues. This particular one, we've maybe got a few more goals being raised by people. This one, maybe a few more post-its than the others, maybe more post-its than the others combined, but lots of issues, lots of methods, but very few goals raised. Again, this one really emphasises how we know what we know how to do well. So we know our structured and predictable areas of the business of healthcare, and we've got lots of methods, we can think of lots of issues relating to it. But in terms of sort of trying to populate some of the more unpredictable, some of the messier situations and the crisis situations, we're maybe not quite so sure, or we're actually getting a wider variety of methods and issues raised. So trying to then bring all of that together, I appreciate it's maybe quite difficult to read off of here, but we did send out a wee briefing note after the session, and I'm happy to send it on to other people. Because what we're trying to see then is what actual methods fit where, was there a consensus, and generally there is consensus amongst everybody. However, how the particular methods actually sit on the charts might not be a strict one area. They might span across different areas. So some of these methods might be more suitable for bridging across different issues. We've got at the top left here, although it's not as densely populated, that mess of an area, we do actually have a number of methods and a number of issues that people were bringing up that they felt they could define and put on here. So this is what we did. This is what we got out of it, and you all kindly participated in it, willingly or not. What I'm interested in is having some feedback on that, some opinions on, do you agree with this? Are there things that you fundamentally disagree with? It can be now or it can be at a later date. You can drop me an email or drop you an email and she'll pass on my details to you. So I won't carry on, but it was just a thank you for your participation. And certainly from our perspective, we got some really interesting insights into how problems are being perceived within healthcare and what methods are being aligned with them.
Great, thanks very much. So yes, thanks very much. Do get in touch with us if you'd like, what does that. I think the easiest thing would be to email Julie, sorry Julie, but you've got Julie's email, who emailed you. Thanks to Julie for organising yet again another seminar series. We are also open to suggestions for future themes or topics, so if there's anything particularly you'd like us to invite speakers to or discuss, please do let us know. We'll try and shape it to what your needs are too. Otherwise, probably the next 2 or 3 months will be another seminar. So until then, thank you very much. Thank you.